and a dinosaur. That's what she said. When they got home, each drew a picture of the creature and realized they had seen exactly the same thing. The description matched other sightings, and the women happened to have seen this near an irrigation creek. So basically what he's saying is like every one of these sightings happens near water, which is super interesting. And that's where the term river dinosaur comes from, or river dino comes from. So this legendary creature that supposedly you can buy in the illegal lizard trade.
Yeah, places, lakes, rivers, ponds, places of water usually seem to correspond with these window areas too. So that.
Oh, really? Yeah, okay, I didn't know that.
That lines up. Yeah.
Yeah, because underneath it is the ley lines that I was talking about earlier. It creates a vortex, the body of water.
Well, anyways, that's all I got to with the hotspots and dinosaurs. I just thought miniature dinosaurs was too good not to research into. But I just wanted to make the point that like it's so bizarre. But all that bizarre things that can happen because there's even like miraculous healings that are associated with hotspots. Not just miniature dinosaurs, UFOs, ghosts, giants, anomalous weather, anomalous events, all religious miracles, like all this. Amazing stuff is there. Flying humanoids. The list goes on and on. How could all these things, like, what is the common denominator? I need to know the common denominator of what's happening. But again, like, if you look at everything through the lens of the holographic theory or the simulation theory, it all makes sense. That if it's all computer programmed as a simulation, weird shit can happen at certain parts, and anything is possible. Like, it's like a creation machine. I don't know. I want to know what hotspots are all about, and I'd love to explore them further. So I'd recommend going to the Bridgewater Triangle and checking out the Four Corners. And I just went to the tip of the iceberg of the Four Corners. There is so much shit down there. That's a huge UFO hotspot too. Yeah. But anyways, I digress on my hotspot research.
So
Mr.
you could
O'Connor,
camp there for like a week. You could camp there for like a week and see all this shit.
Oh yeah, I mean, people regularly report that. We got some comments. Do you remember that someone wrote to us after we did the Underground Bases episode when I was talking about Dulce that he witnessed a bunch of UFOs down there too, and Dulce is roughly in that area. That whole area is fascinating, man.
Yeah. Cool. Matt, what do you got?
All right, so let's go take a break, and after we get back from the break, I'm going to take us to the Superstition Mountains in Arizona.
Ooh.
All right, Matt, what do you got?
Okay, so I I did a little research on I'd heard of these before, the Superstition Mountains in Arizona. It's west of Phoenix. And it's a pretty crazy place. A lot of interesting stuff has happened in these mountains over the years. I think they were formed by like crazy volcanic activity way, way back in time. But it sort of starts off in the 1600s when the Mexican government sort of established this part of the Americas. And there was a family known as the Peralta family. And they kind of set up and, well, they discovered a huge, really pure gold vein within these mountains. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they started a mine in these mountains. And this thing was just banging. This mine was just pumping out the gold. They were super profitable. They were making, like, tens of thousands a year, which, you know, back in the day was, like, shitloads of money, obviously. But during they were there for a number of years, and during that time, this is all Apache land in this area. And I guess at some point in time, the Apaches basically came in and just drove them out, got them the fuck out of there. There was this huge battles and deaths and all sorts of carnage was happening when the Apaches came in and kicked them out of there. But this Peralta family apparently left these carved stones, which had scrawlings of, sort of crude Spanish and these really like rudimentary maps carved into them. And these maps supposedly would lead you to where their really crazy profitable mine was. Anyway, they were driven out of there. And eventually it kind of went dead, and then it was rediscovered in like the 1870s and there's kind of these conflicting stories. Like it was kind of this 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 ever like inflating story of like, oh, there's these two German brothers, and then I who found the mine, and it was like, I guess that story was all possibly BS, and it was only one brother. Sorry, not even a brother. It was just one German guy.
Yeah, he had a brother, but he was still in Germany, but he just wasn't there.
Yeah, okay. He had a brother. Right. He had nothing to do with this story. Though.
It was his evil twin. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so his name was Jacob Waltz, and he eventually found this mine, apparently, and started, like, hauling tons of money out of it and was just, like, killing it. Anyway, this is basically where this whole idea of the legend of the Dutchman's gold mine came from in this area. It was kind of crudely coined by the people at the time. This guy was German. He wasn't even Dutch, but they called him this whole thing the Dutchman's legend of the Dutchman's gold.
So
That's just awesome.
Seems a little racist.
We're gonna find out the guy was actually from India.
Right.
Yeah. He just spoke Dutch. So anyway, so he eventually is. He eventually, I think the Apaches ended up kind of driving him off as well. And later on his deathbed, I think he ended up telling a few people where this gold mine was. But it kind of got lost to the ages not long after that. So we cut to like the 1930s, and then people sort of started getting heard of this thing, and it started becoming a popular kind of meme for the time that there was this gold in their hills, and they had to get out there and it just kind of like kicked off this huge treasure hunt, basically, to try and find this mine. Anyway, what kicked off as a treasure hunt also kind of initiated this huge number of murders and killings that happened that were related to people trying to go out and find this mine and winding up dead or just completely missing in general, never to be found again. And so it sort of started in one of the first...
Wait, can I pause you for a second? Did this location correlate with any of the missing 4 and 1 clusters?
I don't think that it does, actually. I'd have to check that. I'm not sure. I don't think that it does.
Okay.
I don't know if it is national park at this stage.
Yeah,
but it's not.
Are they being killed by other humans, or are they being killed by something supernatural?
I don't know. We'll you tell me. We'll see what we get to.
Okay.
So 1930, Dr. Adolf Ruth goes out in search of the treasure. He goes missing. They can't find him. Search party ensues. Years later, someone stumbles across a skull. They find a skull, and there's two bullets that they believe were made by a .44 caliber pistol, just blown this guy's skull and, huge hole in his head. But the interesting thing was, all they found was the skull. They didn't find the body, so the head was removed after he was shot, or I don't know.
Yeah, what's the order of that?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there.
I mean, I hope he got shot first, because that's probably a better experience.
Yeah.
We can only hope. We can only hope.
So 1940, 10 years later, right? Another guy goes out there. James Cravey,
Vanderbeek?
I believe his name is. Anyway, his body was found first, but not his head. So we're starting to develop a pattern here, right?
I don't know why it's funny to me, but go on.
Could be the couple of wine.
You need the body with the old head. Okay, all right, I got it. Okay.
Yeah. So body found first. They determined it was this guy. 6 months later, they find his skull in a different part of the mountains. So now we're seeing a pattern, right? 1952, 10 years after that, 3 more people go missing. We don't find those people ever again. They're gone. We don't know where they are. And there's a... So there's this really cool one, actually. One of the first ones is this guy called Elisha Rivas, and he was this crazy fucker. And he was this like old, grizzled old like prospector who never washed, never cut his hair. And apparently he was just like known as just like this, I'll say eccentric, but he's just fucking crazy as well. So he used to run around the mountains. This wild man, apparently he used to just run around throughout all this valley here in the mountains, just completely naked, just shooting his gun in the air. Like a crazy person. And he was so crazy, they said that, yeah, good for, you know, do your thing. Do you.
Express yourself.
Yeah. So, anyway, so he was so crazy apparently that the Apaches just left him alone and were just like, all right, he's a crazy fucker. He's fine. We're not going to touch this guy.
You didn't shoot an arrow in his white beep.
No, they were just. He was just like this old. He like came in for the California gold rush. Apparently, he couldn't find anything, so he kind of moved to this area and then just kind of went, you know, increasingly crazy as his life went on. So I guess when he was 70, his body was found as well at some point. One of his acquaintances went up to see him because they hadn't heard from him in a while, and just found his body also headless. Ooh. So now we're spanning, decades here of the same killings happening, decapitations in this area.
How far in between? What's the timeline now? How many years in between the first one and this one?
So the first one was in the early
30s.
So this
right?
this crazy person was actually earlier than the 30s. He was in the late 1800s, I believe, early 1900s. So now we're
trying
going
to get at is it spanning generations or is it still within one generation? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, yeah, generations, because then we get to from 1955 to 78. There were multiple headless people found. So now we got like from early 1900s all the way to 78. And we've still got these headless bodies turning up in this area of people who are going out to find the treasure and just never being seen again and winding up headless as a corpse in the mountains. So it's just like really odd thing. Like you'd think if it was a serial killer,
like a ghost or like a.
So there was
like
apparently
kind of
it's this cursed. Yeah, there's a legend that's just they called it an Apache curse on this land, and this was what these result of these headless bodies turning up was a result of a curse. But that's like, what are we talking now? 70, 80, 90 years of all these bodies turning up in the same MO.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So if you're going to say it's a serial killer, whoever it is must be like, either it's like a family of serial killers who are generations doing the same thing to each other.
The hills have eyes.
Yeah, or it's like a hills have eyes thing. Or it is something that's completely, a little bit more mysterious, if you will. And it even like as recently as 2009, 2010, 2009 there was a guy who went seeking his fortune up in the mountains. He was from Denver, actually, a guy named Jesse Kappen. And he went digging around in the mountains in 2009, and they didn't find his body for a while afterwards. But he apparently had he still had his head on him, but he fell somewhere and was like, I think he was trying to climb a rock and fell into a crevasse and never was able to get out again. But 2010, a group of 3 men had gone hiking in there. Yeah, and they had their bodies still haven't been found. We don't know where they are. So it's still happening. So look, if you're looking for a destination to get out there and dig around and maybe never come back again, go check out the Superstition Mountains. But the interesting thing was, like, as far as like a lore and the curse and stuff, the Apaches have these writings about the area where they talk about these I wouldn't say creatures, I will say a race of people known as the Tautums, Taur-Tums, Tautums. And it was a race of people, like of ancient people, they said, before they were kind of in the area. And they're apparently an underground dwelling people. We've heard that a bunch. and apparently they talk about in their old, ancient writings that these totems could be seen kind of on the top of mountains and rocks and stuff, looking down at people who would, like travelers who would be walking through the area, and it was